Then the last use case, as we try to call it, is Martin Van Aken. Martin Van Aken, former CTO of Bluesquare. Give it up for Martin, yes.
Thanks a lot. To put something about this former thing that may be weird, I left this CTO position 18 months ago as something that could be a talk, but not for today, which is called pretty much you don't have to say a manager if you don't want to. So I'm back to making software development. I'm 45 and I'm quite happy. This being said, it was a wonderful experience. And so for the quick thing about Bluesquare, it's a scale up, I'd say. I joined, we were 20. I left, we were 50. I think they're 80 now. So that is active in public health, pretty much. We made the IT software needed for when you have a big health programs. Let's say the World Bank decide to put $100 million into the Democratic Republic of Congo health system. They generally want to know where the money is going for weird reason. And so if you scale that to, let's say, 40,000 health centers split in a country that, for just reference as the size of Europe, you probably need software like to follow that. So that's pretty much what Bluesquare was doing and is still doing with a lot of success nowadays. And that explains that GoogleGit support about what I'm going to say. So about the thanks to Bien for the invitation. Thanks to Lana for setting up the bar about what speaking fast means so that you're prepared for my talk. I'm sorry for that. It has been 25 years. I'm aware of it. I can't stop myself. So you're going to be okay. Most people are okay. I did teach a lot. It's difficult the first 20 minutes. So after it's going to be fine. I'm going to be done. It's going to be fine. And also I'm used to be outslided quite a lot by other panelists and speaker. But this is clearly the first time someone come with handcrafted slides. So that's really difficult to beat. So yeah, that's my opening statement as someone that like a lot M&Ms and pizza. And well, this may be a good vision for you of my awful taste, or maybe an image about something I'm going to try to explain in the following, that not everything that are good separated are good together. So yeah, when I was at Bluesquare as CTO, so I taking in charge of the development team, it was a quite typical startup situation. 6 people collocated in Brussels, and then 2 people in Bujumbura. Well, maybe that's not the typical startup, but that's why it was important to explain what Bluesquare was. And so while we had meetings, it was before the pandemic, people were in Brussels were coming to the office. Actually, people in Bujumbura were coming in the office, but obviously not the same office. That means that when we had to make calls, let's say team, okay, I have trouble with the thing. So we used that wonderful piece of technology that we put in the middle of the room in Brussels, and our colleague did pretty much the same in Bujumbura, and we started talking. And something I want to emphasize is that no one thought that was the good way. It was just the way. We were used to that. By the time I arrived, the team was doing that in some years. And it felt fine, as much as we could say. Now, I really appreciated the previous speaker talking about, well, not everyone is made the same, and no one was complaining. So, well, probably it was working. Until I started looking a bit about, especially talking to my 2 colleagues that were in addition relatively junior people in Bujumbura. And the fact is, what came out of looking was that this very nice working system was actually creating a second-class citizen. Like we had employee, like full employee in Brussels, where our leadership was collocated also. Every single manager was there. And then 2 people outside. And this made them pretty much, not by design, no one was intending that in our company, sort of second-class employee. Why? They had much more trouble connecting with a lot of things. Actually, the connection was not that good, and trying to follow a meeting with 6 people, including me, are talking on top of each other in a meeting room in Brussels. It's not something to be easy from a country where, in addition, the connection can be problematic. So yeah, I'm trying to share our journey there. I'm not saying your journey is the same, and I'm not saying what we did is ideal, but with something we learned there. And something I learned there is to listen more, and especially to listen more to shy people, or to more fragile, or to the people in your company that for reasons, status, whatever, are possibly more fragile, and to see what they are saying. And the fact that they were not saying that was going okay. Well, they were very happy to be with the company, which I was happy with, but it wasn't really working okay until we decided to change. And what we did as a change is we applied something which is from the GitLab handbook. I'm going to say that again, but like a lot of companies made this transition to remote. Like you can take a lot of good things from what people did before. And so our meetings went from this to this. That is, we apply this, if one person is remote in a meeting, everyone is remote. That means that inside a single office in Brussels, we were often with, like, let's say 8 people, 6 of them with their headset in actually the same meeting, because we had, as long as we had at least one person that was outside of that room. It wasn't initially met with resounding like appreciation, actually from the main office. But I had immediate feedback from our colleague in Bujumbura that for the first time they felt they were on an equal footing. And that means also that the things that were not working well with the calls were suddenly everyone's problems, not just the 2 guys' problems. And so we improved. And so what I learned there is that sometimes, as a manager or someone responsible for that, you need to give a push. You need to force a bit the things, at least get to a situation to tell your team, I want to try. And I don't want to try one day, I want to try a couple of months, so that we can see how is this going. This single thing, one person remote, everyone remote, is probably, if I have one sentence, something that helps us the most. Everything had to be adjusted there. Good headset became part of the package. We buy a satellite connection from Bujumbura. It was expensive, but less expensive than having people that cannot work properly. So that was still a very, financially speaking, it was a very good deal. I remember, I think, telling my CEO at the time, either we apply it that way, or I fire the guys in Bujumbura, because the current situation is not fair to them and it's not fair to the company. So we find a way that's fair, or we stop with satellite office because we're not able to manage that properly. We kept them. I'm super happy. And by the time the team expanded to Harare in Zimbabwe, Kinshasa, and so on, because we were working there. And well, we played a lot of the Agile book, try things, adjust. According to me, tend to work better than strategizing. If it is one area outside of software development that works in an Agile way, it's process. Like, people want to do something differently. Instead of discussing a long time whether it's valid or not, try it out. Most processes are not going to kill the company in 2 weeks. So, and what we see with playing that game is that the thing that doesn't work tend to just fade away by themselves. You don't need a meeting to say we stop doing that, because everyone has stopped far before asking you. And the things that works, they stick. And so, well, obviously when the COVID and the remote part struck, well, the only thing we did is sending an email to the people in Belgium saying, don't forget your laptop tonight. That was it. Because at the time, none of our process were depending on us being co-located. Yeah. So the typical feedback you get is we miss the lively in-person debate. By the way, I told my presentation will be boring, and now I'm afraid I'm inflammatory. But like, let's be honest, those lively in-person debates are generally not that good, and they're giving an unfair advantage to people like me that can talk loud for a lot of time, and I have no problem interrupting people. And suddenly, you realize at this nice team meeting, you have 2 people you never hear from, or 3, or whatever. Why? Not everyone is able to speak on top of someone else. And in an ideal world, that shouldn't be a requirement to work at your company, or at least put them in the job posting so that people knows. So yeah, it's the usual case. Weirdly enough, we don't get loud complaint from shy people. I'm making this a joke because I'm trying to, but yeah. And that means, so the fact that some people are complaining now doesn't mean it's not better. And the fact that people were not complaining before didn't mean it was fine. So that's something that, well, need to take care about the colleague around, about finding a way to get feedback. And some people will have big trouble and come to great length to not say something bad about the manager. Maybe because they are afraid. Maybe it's not just in their culture. So you need to find a way. And the fact is, most meetings that were bad when we move it remote, we are not that good before in person. I've heard things saying, okay, we want to avoid people to do something else during our meeting. Well, make the meeting more interesting. Like, no, man, that's not a people problem. That's a you problem when you say that, is that maybe the meeting is not that interesting. What do I mean by that? Well, is it after or is it there? Like, if you have a meeting once a week where you communicate information to the whole of the company, if it's just 2 people speaking to the rest of the company, send an email. Like, why do that a meeting? It's not a meeting. It's like a broadcast. Or at minimum, record it if you prefer, make a video, and people are going to watch it when they want, possibly 1.5 speed. So if you have a meeting where everyone is reporting to their manager, do 5 meetings 1-1, because the 4 others are waiting at the same time. So if the information is not useful to everyone, why do you make them sit still for a time. There is a place for meetings, which is discussion, but it's much smaller than what we do, generally speaking, with meeting. So, and I'm not saying that to be nice to people. Well, it's still good if you're a human being, but that it's much more efficient too. Yeah, and when I say there's a lot about letting go, something I saw in a lot of managers, including me, is that one of the reasons management is complicated to move is once you explain to a manager that their job is not to say to people what they should do or to watch what they are doing. Most of them are a bit clueless about what they should do, actually. There's a lot of things to do as a manager, but those are generally not that interesting ones. I used to work in the social security sector in Belgium, and at the time we were like 250, and there was a board of 5 people, the biggest manager of the company, well, not in size, but you get the idea. And 2 of them were actually smoking, which means that as anyone in the company, if you wanted a 5-minute discussion with a manager of the board, you could either send an email and wait 2 months, or get into the smoking room, because you know they were there at least 4 times a day. I was not smoking, but I did use that because I wanted some of my project to progress, and it was useful to my career to have this sort of access. And this obviously was an unfair advantage. I used to say that company, that if you were a smoker, you had the better career advancement possibilities. And again, it's not completely a joke, and it's not fun. And that means that this is the new unfair advantage. If you have people in an office, especially if the leadership is there, and some people around, the people that have access to the coffee machine suddenly have this like specific access to management. And this, if again you think that creating second-class employees is bad, which I do think, means that this kind of logic needs to go away, that you need to find other ways for people to discuss, for impromptu, for something else. And that's clearly possible. It's thinking a bit and finding new ways, but it's generally something totally doable, need to change a bit. That means that if you start a discussion, let's say in a Slack or something like that, and it come to, oh, that will be useful a meeting, well, make it a meeting, including the people that may not be there at the coffee machine because maybe they are living 10,000 kilometers away. Or it's just the guy from Leuven that was not going in the office anymore. And at some point, I told my manager at the time, how I'm going to say to someone that lives in Leuven, you need to get in the office 2 days a week, where he has 2 colleagues doing the same job that are in Bujumbura, so are never going to be in the Brussels office. What's the meaning of that? How can I justify that? Because pretty much I can't. So yeah, what does it mean? Having a direction of more result-oriented, it helps people that are more at ease with the written form or that are just shy, and you have a lot. It works better for employees for life. Like it allows me to pick my kids at this completely unreasonable time that the school asked me to get there. And then maybe I can work a bit after. And it means that we try to remove this HQ coffee machine advantage. I'm working in IT. Recruiting people is hard. Yeah, that means that if you make it even harder on yourself by saying, I want people coming 3 days a week in the office, because suddenly you're recruiting in a 30-kilometer square around where you're living. I'm doing that in Brussels. It's not that good. Try that in Liège. It's not better. Actually, it's worse. So suddenly, if you decide to say, you know what, it's complicated to hire, yeah, because you're limiting yourself. If we're speaking, and I'm speaking of remote, I'm not speaking of async, which is a totally different beast. Just saying we're okay to work with people from GMT -1 to +2, something like that. So we have 6 hours that we work at the same time, we can still have meeting. Well, suddenly you have around 800 million people in that. I'm making the number up, it's probably much more. You have all Africa and all Europe there. Maybe it's easier to find people in that amount, good people in that amount of people than in the one living 10 kilometers from your office. I'm quite convinced this will become a competitive advantage. I think that for a startup or a scale-up in IT, saying we work in the office is pretty much asking for suicide. If you move there, you'll spend a lot of more time in tools. Someone mentioned that. And that means you need to learn to use tools. And that's the typical example is from nohello.net. I like it. From how to not use a chat platform with like starting with hi, then hi. Oh, I wanted to know about, yes, put the question directly. The whole point about asynchronous is that if you wait for me to answer, we're going to lose a lot of time there. There is one much worse than that. So that's the worst thing you can do. Bonus if you're a manager. Okay, am I getting fired? Like, is it something? And as an employee, it's good because when I receive that from an employee, I'm asking myself, is he leaving? Like, because that happens too. So don't do this. Like when? Never. Like what's the problem with that? You have 15 minutes to talk about the Remington project this afternoon. I have a couple of ideas. I like your opinion on. Okay, that's much better. person probably knows they are not getting fired. But this still happen, and honestly, that's in every company, and we cannot estimate the number of like angst and fear and they be generated with these kind of things. So yeah, it's learned. So what I call some Slack ticket. I like this portmanteau. So no, hello, can we talk? Yeah, no, let's talk immediately. Something that's sometimes a bit difficult, the GitLab guys are doing that a lot, is try to move discussion from private conversation to public channel. Doesn't mean everyone needs to read, and everyone needs to be able to read. It's fun, and it promotes a culture where you have it more open, and also you find information back, which is quite useful, generally speaking. Something we implemented at Bluesquare was if you make 3 exchanges in Slack with someone and you're not to a solution, you pick your phone. Metaphorically speaking, that is, you take your headset. Like you're not doing back and forth because it means it's not working. Then you change the media. That's why we have headset. And yeah, that the usual that could this meeting have been an email? I think 70% of them in most companies could have been an email. So yeah, and then you come into, and that's where I'm going to get friends. Yeah. So I love the place is wonderful. I mean, I'm just wondering how people are working here, but like it's an incredible space. It's the same as the co-working I'm working. I don't think this is teamwork or belonging. I think that is we used to sing happy birthday in a team meeting in headset using headset, and you look absolutely stupid, and it's wonderful. So, and who cares about how we look anyway? That means I think that team and belonging is about team and relationship more than about the fact that you have ping pong tables. Yeah. On the story side, we used to have a stand-up every day. We had a 10-minute call where everyone was saying what they were doing. And so I run once in a while a survey about how is that useful to your work, and you want to keep it. And we went progressively to a standard answer, which is it useful to your work? Not really. Do you want to keep it? Absolutely, yes. Well, maybe this stand-up wasn't about work in the end. That's okay. It was about the fact that we are a team in 8 different countries and we don't see each other often. And it's good on the morning to say hello, chit-chat a bit, pretend it's about work, and go on. And once in a while, it's about work. But most time, no. Is that a problem? Probably not. So I think it's a lot about, yeah, showing people respect, celebrating together the little wins, one way or another. It's a journey, and it's yours. It's not easy, but also it has been done before by other companies. You don't have to invent every single way of working remotely. Those days, GitLab has published a whole handbook about that. There are a couple of other companies too. Don't take everything. It's not the sacred scripture, but like don't start from scratch. Like you don't have to reinvent everything from first principle. So there are trail signs. So yeah, make this your own journey, and honesty going to be fine. Yeah. Thanks a lot.